welcome to the very first edition of Another Culture. This is exciting for us, so thank you for being part of this. Almost all seemingly good ideas. Another Culture, which is a collaboration between Paper Planes and The Floating magazine, came up and germinated as an idea over a cup of coffee in a cafe. It's as cliche as it is, but here we are. We've hammered on it, we've decided to go ahead with it, and here we are with our first two guests for the day. For those of us and who are, I mean, it's a first venture for all of us, the first edition for all of us, but those of you who do not know who we are, a quick introduction. Paper Planes, which is a venture that I'm a part of, shares independent print magazines with readers in India through a subscription service. We source these magazines from across the world. The Floating magazines, on the other hand, which was started by Payal Khandelwal, who's with us as well today. She's a journalist, and this Floating magazine itself is an online magazine which sort of chronicles the lives and works of artists based in Asia and the Middle East. Another Culture primarily was started so that Payal and I could get together and meet interesting people and have conversations with them. Truthfully, that is why we started Another Culture. But on a serious note, we also visualize Another Culture as a platform where we bring together interesting people to not just indulge in interesting conversations, but also somehow create possibilities of, new learnings and collaborations. Hopefully, at the end of this session, you guys will appreciate what we mean and get to understand us a little better. So, without further delay in this, I'm going to first introduce you to our first guest of the day. To my left is Romil Ratra. Romil is the director of Bellona Hospitality, which is the F&B arm of Phoenix Mill. This cafe and bar, which is 212 All Good, is his brainchild, yeah? And Romil also has 20 years of experience in this hospitality sector. And one more trivia, Romil is also a chef by training. Welcome, Romil.
Thanks. Thank you guys all for coming.
We also have Manan Gandhi with us. Manan is the founder of Bombay Perfumery, which is a independent contemporary fragrance house based in India and very, very recently launched.
Correct.
We understand Manan grew up in Bombay, right? And dividing his time between basketball and his father's perfume lab, as I understand.
Right.
Manan also has a very successful business venture based in Grasse in France, where they supply fragrance ingredients to perfume houses across the world.
That's right.
So a big welcome to the two of you as well. Thank you so much for being part of this. Yes. Thank you for being part of this, this first adventure of ours. I'm going to get straight to the questions. I think everybody is curious to understand the concepts and idea and the people that we have with us. Should we start with you, Romil, first?
Sure.
Yeah. So, Romil, you've got 20 years of experience in this hospitality industry. Yep. You're also a chef by training.
Which I never did, though.
Tell us a little bit about, how did you come to be part of this culinary world?
You want me to go back to the time when I had my 7 siblings and then there was a fire and 5 of them died and I had to cook?
No, that's not a story we want to hear. No.
Sorry.
So let us hear everything that you have to say about how you came here.
All of you have heard the phrase, there's no such thing as a free lunch. It's not true. I get a free lunch every single day. Every day. And that's the only reason I do this. Just so I can get those free lunches. No, so I think on a more serious note, I truly believe I'm one of those lucky guys because I get up every single morning saying I want to go to work because I love what I do. The whole idea of being able to create something, the whole idea of being able to nourish people. I was going to say touch people, but it sounds really shady, so just nourish is good. I started my career with the Taj, lived in Mumbai all my life. The Taj was great, best hotel school in the world. Moved to Barcelona to be a cook for some time, which was a mind-changing experience. Got back here, set up a restaurant of my own, lost everything. Fortunately, we managed to make it back. Since then, it's just been fun and free lunches. I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of gyan about what I've done in the past. What I'd really like to talk to you guys about is what we're doing here and what we hope to do as we go forward. The only thing I didn't get was to live in a place called grass.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to live in a place called
we're going to
grass.
hear more about that from Manan, definitely.
Sure.
But before we move to Manan, we know you've been around for 20 years. We've seen a change in culture over the last decade or so. We've seen food evolve. At the same time, we just when we thought we've heard all the terms associated with conscious food, we've heard organic food, we've heard superfoods, we've heard slow food movement. We hear about food for the gut. You want to tell us a little bit about what is this food good for your gut, which is what 212 All Good is all about.
Okay, so before I get into that, we're not a health cafe. We're not diet food. We don't promise to make you thin if you eat here every day. We're none of those things. The idea to do food for your gut. Why did we do this? 80% of our wellness sits in our gut. Okay, and if I go back maybe a couple of years when the thought process really started for me, I was working on a wellness project, and I got a chance to meet some really amazing people. I got a chance to travel a little bit. And I met some really great wellness operators, some of them that run some of the best wellness resort spas in the world. And one in particular, I think completely changed my perception to how important a role your gut plays in your wellness and how important a role the food that you give yourself plays in your own wellness. I'm just going to ask you guys something. A brown bread toast with an egg white omelette. Is that a clean, healthy breakfast?
Yeah, imagine, yeah,
Probably.
yeah, I would.
Okay, so instinctively, yes, we'd all say yes. But then if you get into the science behind it,
Right.
everything changes.
Right.
So I'm going to add a bunch of stuff to say, but I'm going to leave you with a simple thought.
Right.
Every single thing that we eat gives us energy. That energy is used for just 4 things. Your heart, your brain, more digestion, and then what's left is used to regenerate yourself, for your cells to rebuild, repair, for you to be well. If you tax your digestion or your gut, more energy is used for that. Like any other machine, your system can't regulate what goes into what's needed for your brain. It can't regulate what's needed for your heart, because if those two stop, then we're going to grass.
No, but is this food for the gut that you talk about? Could you tell us a little bit about what is this food for the gut? I mean, you know, we appreciate where you're coming from and the idea behind it, but I'm just a little curious. Name a few. What is this food that's for your gut, which is different? Is it just the food that we've been eating, but we just need to identify, or is it a different format altogether, which is being prepared just keeping an eye on your gut?
So the thought process that we applied was, one, when we said food for your gut, what is going to be easy for you to digest, what is going to be nourishing, what is going to give you the necessary energy that you need without taxing your system. So we decided to not go down the route of the way a typical health space would go.
Right.
We didn't go down the route of what are we going to leave out.
Right.
Instead we said, let's look at being inclusive. Let's see what we can bring in.
Right.
What is going to stimulate your digestion? What is going to make you feel better? What is going to take away what we as a team coined as post-meal stress disorder? You go out, you have a great time, and then there's the guilt. And the guilt is, oh no, I shouldn't have eaten that. Now tomorrow I'm going to have to run extra. But why should it have to be like that? There's no reason for it to be like that. And we took a leaf out of our forefathers and our ancestors. You know, there are stories about don't eat this, don't eat that. And someone will say, oh, but my grandfather ate this. But hey, we live completely different lives from the lives that they had. They didn't have half the conveniences we did, or we do. Um, their food was chemical free. It was not processed. It was natural. It didn't travel for miles. I didn't need to bring in, I don't know, Peruvian quinoa maybe.
Yeah.
Because think about this. We go to the fancy stores and we buy Peruvian quinoa and say, oh, it's super healthy. But hey, think about this. It was probably harvested a year ago. It went into a factory. It got processed. It got packed. Sat in a warehouse for 6 months. Got shipped over here. Probably got completely delayed by the customs.
How healthy can it be?
Then it sat in my store for, I don't know, however long the process took.
Right.
As against getting something that was completely local, completely fresh, not processed,
Right.
not traveled, no additives, nothing that enhanced its shelf life.
Right.
And those are all the thoughts that we applied to what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
To actually give you food that was easy for you, that was better for your system. But we chose not to dilute what customers today look for. What do you look for when you go out? You want something that appeals to you.
That's right.
The taste and flavor profiles are things that you understand. So we've applied all the stuff that we learned and all the stuff that we researched
And
into
that
giving
what
you food.
made you
Absolutely.
focus
But we
on
also
food
we also added in the elements of fermentation, pickling, probiotics, because those are things that we know are good for the gut.
Right.
They promote good bacteria.
Right. That's excellent. I mean, I guess just to understand, the fact that you're not necessarily saying this is diet food, but you're
Absolutely
saying
not.
this is your normal food, but we
Yes.
focused the fact that this is good for your gut. Very helpful, Romil. Let's move to Manan now. Manan.
Okay.
We understand, of course, that there is a family legacy in the fragrance business.
Right.
We also know from the people who are in the know that the domestic luxury fragrance market is about 600 to 700 crores today. It's growing at about 20 to 25% year on year.
Right.
So apart from, of course, just the optimistic economics and of course there's a family business,
Right.
was there a more personal reason why you chose to start this perfumery
Yeah, sure.
now and here in India?
Sure. So like just to throw back to what I've been doing.
Right.
After I finished my studies and stuff like that,
Right.
I was living in the south of France in Grasse for the last 5 years. I was very lucky. Everyone wants to retire in the south of France, and I started my career in the south
Right,
of
yeah.
France in a sense. Started a company there where we were supplying ingredients to some of the biggest fragrance houses all over the world, in Europe and all over the world. And it gave me opportunities to travel all over the world to obscure places like Haiti, Indonesia, all parts of India to source all these ingredients. But for me, after 5 years of doing that, I looked at what I was doing and what I wanted to be doing for the next 20, 30 years, however long I'm here. And I felt like it was important for me to do three things: something that was interesting, something that was fulfilling, and something that was impactful. And despite having a great life and a successful business in the south of France, I thought in all three of those areas I was kind of lacking to meet my personal objectives. And an important part of that was because I was in this kind of B2B space where...
Tell us a little bit about the personal objective that you just spoke about. What was it personally that allured you to doing this at this point?
Right. So like what I was doing was such a B2B kind of space, I was missing this whole kind of creative aspect,
Right.
working on a product which ends up on a shelf or ends up in the hands of a consumer. I can get direct feedback from them. So that was a big missing part in my kind of career space. This kind of creativity of having a brand, creating a brand, stuff like that, that was missing. I felt like on the impactful side, what I was doing was, sure, it was great in its own space, but it was not, because it was not consumer facing, it was not like a global, I was not facing a global audience, so to speak.
Yeah.
So those are three things that I kind of mainly wanted to address when I started this. And we can come back to the economics, of course, right now with this whole Make in India movement.
Right.
People are looking for interesting homegrown brands, not just in fragrance, but in design and fashion, in food, whatever it is. Indian consumers are becoming smarter and smarter. They are not just happy to buy something off the shelf which has been imported from, as a made in France sticker doesn't make it any better than something that is made here. People's design sensibilities are improving dramatically. So people want not just the kind of cliched Indian products with elephants and lotuses and flowers on it, So I thought it was a good time and space to do something interesting, and it kind of fulfilled this goal of mine to have, personally, to have this kind of creative aspect to myself, and also professionally, I felt it was an interesting economic.
That makes sense. I guess this is a good time to, I mean, if your personal inclination towards creativity and, you know, especially given the change in times that you mentioned about, this is a good time to be doing this. So that's wonderful. Manan, you also describe Bombay Perfumery as a contemporary fragrance house offering progressive perfumery trends. Right. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? You know, the use of word contemporary and.
So what make perfumery ingredients is not like every day you're going to find some new flower which you can put in a fragrance, right, or some new wood or I don't know, leaf that you can put in a perfume. But when we say contemporary, we mean that the way we use the ingredients, like a perfumer has 1200 ingredients in their palette. How they use them is what makes them contemporary or traditional. So you can go the traditional route and make a very floral fragrance or a very fruity fragrance or whatever it is. But by contemporary, we try to go in olfactive directions which are new or progressive. Like you take a ingredient like for example what we have, we take an ingredient like tuberose, which is a classic, and then you mix it with leather. Or you take an ingredient like black pepper, which is used in food or flavor, and you put it in, you thrust it in a perfume as a central ingredient of a perfume. So to use these kind of ingredients which we have for a long time, but put them in this kind of modern context, or put them in a direction which people are not used to seeing it, is what makes it.
And like you said, now is a good time to get creative with everything.
So. I think so. People are looking for
new experiences.
Especially we are kind of in this luxury sort of space. So the kind of product we give to a customer, they don't want something which they've smelled before, or something that their mother used to use, or something their grandmother used. They want something which is different, and that's what we're trying to do.
You know, and that actually brings me to, you know, one question that's on my mind, and that sort of applies to both your industry, is about, you know, the balance between traditionally what's done and your instinct. You know, to start with you, Manan, you know, you mentioned, if you could just take us through, one, the process of perfume making, and two, you know, how do you sort of balance between how much creativity or experimentation you can do with, or how much you need to stick to the traditions of what's been accepted by, you know, your audience. So tell us a little bit about the process and the balance as well.
So I think whenever, especially when we start, or I started working on a perfume, or these perfumes more than a year ago, the basic idea is that you decide like what olfactive direction you want to go in. So you say, let's say I want to go in this pepper route or a spice route. And you kind of take inspiration from, traditionally, how were people using jasmine, or how were people using pepper in a perfume? That, I mean, the base of perfumery, the knowledge of perfumery is a very old tradition. It's a very traditional business. Perfumers are normally from the same family, generation after generation, passing knowledges to each other. So that traditional part is always an important part of how you want to move ahead. But then it depends. What I'm trying to say is that when we begin, it's very instinct based. Like I want to use black pepper, for example, and then we kind of use modern perfumery techniques to kind of spin that around. You use ingredients which a pepper was not associated with in the past, and make it kind of.
Right. So you do sort of, I mean, there is a leeway to experiment as well, you know. But what about, do you keep the audience in mind as well? For instance, you know, we see that there is floral fragrance is the most preferred as well, you know, and we see people stereotyping that as well. You know, when it's a fragrance coming from India, they would want to see more jasmine and flower or black pepper and stuff like that, spicy. So is it something that you think people can sort of break away from and try and do something new, or you think you need to stick to you know, traditionally making these the same way, and you know?
So that's a good question, and it's the heart of perfumery right now at the moment.
Right.
It's what a lot of perfumers are frustrated with when they are working on a major brief from a big brand.
Right.
What happens is when a brand comes to them, everything is already decided. This is going to be the model we are using. This is the kind of ingredients that we want to use. So they are so restricted in the experimentation that they are able to do. So when that's the reason independent perfumery is in Europe, and now that's what we're trying to do. perfumers are very happy to work with independent perfumeries because they give them leeway to say, do something creative, do something new.
Right.
When a big brand launches a perfume, it's consumer tested around the world.
Right.
So they don't want to take any risks. They don't want to do anything which might polarize certain people because
Right.
a lot of money is on the table,
Right.
marketing-wise, PR-wise. So they are, well, the idea when a perfume starts by a perfumer and when a big brand launches it, it's so whittled down that it's totally two different ideas.
Right.
Whereas when an independent perfumery or a Bombay Perfumery, we go to a perfumer, we say, what do you think we should do? And they pitch us an idea, why don't we go in this direction? And we let them play with it and explore and push it to its edges as far as acceptability goes. And I think that's how it, if you want to kind of push the envelope, it comes to luxury, where the space we are in, you need to be pushing the envelope and you can't just be following market trends and can't be doing acceptable things just to be likable to everyone.
Tell us which perfumes of yours would you say are more experimental?
So we've launched a range of 8 just a month ago. 3 are men, 3 are women, 2 are unisex. I would say that 2 of our unisex fragrances are the one which I feel are most kind of pushing the envelope as far as the concept goes and the final product goes as well. We wanted to be the first kind of brand in India which also brings this unisex trend to India because globally all perfumes are moving towards unisex kind of direction. Perfumes are so personal that what somebody might find feminine is not necessarily true. It's all a marketing gimmick finally. So the 2 unisex fragrances that we have, one is a very interesting one which we call Chai Musk, which is kind of this play on chai and making it how to turn Indian chai, which has all these like very flavory kind of ingredients, which is we associate with consumption, and how to turn that into a luxurious fragrance. So that's one which I think is very different, very polarizing, but has very interesting elements. And another one, our second one, which we call 1020, which is kind of built around this concept of ginger and vetiver. Again, it's very experimentative because we are used to seeing ginger in food and it has such an overpowering aspect to it. We are used to it in Indian kitchens and things like this. So people are like, are you sure you want to make a fine fragrance perfume which is around ginger? And I find
and this is your unisex.
This is a unisex one. And it's kind of one of our most polarizing and different ones from what people are used to smelling in. But we've got great feedback for it, so it kind of encourages us to take more risks and to do interesting things.
Sure, yeah. Romil, tell me, what are your thoughts on this? You know, 212 All Good has largely experimented with its menu quite a bit. And would you say that you've been able to do everything that you wanted to do with the menu, or, you know, there was a conscious decision to sort of hold back certain things just to meet audience expectations, or, you know, you've been able to sort of balance that just spot on? And
so, you know, the thing with food is that one man's food is another man's poison.
Right.
Much like fragrance, it's personal.
Yeah.
I think with what we tried to build, and the reason I say what we tried to build is because we're still trying every day to get better.
Right.
Because I may give her something and I'll give you something. You may love it, she probably won't, and she thinks it needs more spice, it needs more flavor.
Right.
So for us, I think the core was, we had an idea. And we had an idea based on our gut instinct.
Right. Sure.
But I think while we had the idea, it was very important for us to be able to back that idea up with facts, to back that idea up with not just words, but the science of how to make the idea come true.
Sure. Tell us a little bit. So I think where I was trying to get with the question was, you know, there are certain expectations out of food. You know, there are certain preconceived notions of what people would enjoy in a certain kind of food. And it's difficult to break that. It's not easy, let's just put it this way. It's not easy to break that preconceived notions or conditioning that we've been through over the years. We know that when we see a burger, we need tons of fries with it. You know, we want tons of, when we see something dessert based, we want it to be super sugary because we're craving for that. How does your menu sort of tackle that in terms of, I'm not saying that you're not putting sugar or potato on your plates.
I'm not putting sugar actually.
Oh, that's great. So how do you...
Not refined sugar in any case.
Great. So, you know, so like I said, there are certain changes that you want to put out there, because I think it's also a consumer education to a great level, right? It's not like we all know everything about food, and especially because there's so much about food that's already out there. People are really confused about what's really good or bad or whatever. So there are all these information that we have. So at some level, there is also a need to sort of let people know what's really good. It's almost like educating people about it. But is that a big challenge that you see, or do you sort of go in like, okay, you know what, people expect this, let's put this on the menu?
Okay.
Is that true?
So here's the thing. When we decided that we were going to do all good, we first set a series of filters for ourselves because we wanted the concept to have integrity.
Right.
We didn't want to say we're doing something and then not do it.
Yeah, sure.
And when we said we're not going to do refined sugar, we're not going to do refined flour, we're going to drop processed food, we're going to drop food with chemicals, because the science...
And you did all of that.
And we did all of that.
And
it wasn't easy, but what we needed to do then was create that balance and be able to give people what they expect when they go out to eat. So we had to build in all those filters and not lose the taste, the visual appeal, the comfort, the familiarity that you get with a dish. I go out to a restaurant, I don't want to eat dal and chawal when I go out to a restaurant. Okay, maybe I do sometimes, but most people don't. You go out because you want something that you can't get at home. Now, how could I make that better? So yes, some of those things meant dropping some of the things that we talked about, but then we wanted to add in the element of good for your gut. So that's where the balance really came in. And the challenge was to make sure that we got the right ingredients.
And get the people happy.
And yes, well, you can keep most of the people happy all of the time. All of the people happy most of the time, but make everyone happy all the time.
Staying earnest to your idea and, making sure that the guests
we knew we had to stay the course. So it's been a great couple of weeks. We're only a couple of weeks old. The feedback has been largely good. And I think more than anything else, the fact that we've got feedback is what makes us fix and improve and get better and add in so much more. We have a small space. We have, I think, 500 new ideas every day. And I think chef hates me.
No, but you've got the balance, and I think, or you're getting there.
I think we're getting there.
I think that's
absolutely.
That's brilliant. We often hear a lot about terms used such as locally sourced, back to basics. What do you think, Romil, particularly in the food industry, what is really driving this kind of movement where people are wanting to sort of source things locally, go back to basics? What do you think is the driving force behind this?
Okay, maybe slightly controversial here, but I think as a culture, for us, for the largest time, we were ruled over. We were told what to do, whether it was the British in India, whether it was the Portuguese in Goa, whether it was our own Maharajas, and we were always told this is what you have to do. We were largely not free to think. And that happens even today. We're not always free to think. What we've tried to do here is bring in food that really gives you a chance to think about what you're putting into your mouth. We're bombarded by information every single day. You can clean your toilet bowl with Coca-Cola. And if you put your tooth in Diet Coke, it's going to dissolve in the morning. And a McDonald's burger is going to sit out there and be the same for 6 months.
But how, of course, we hear a lot of information, like you said, about food generally. So are you trying to tell us that it's because there is, at some point in time, there was a lot of general information about the kind of food you get because we were getting food from all across the world. We've started becoming, because of this industrialization generally in speaking, there were packaged foods available, etc., etc. But is it because people finally realized that, we have good food available at an arm's length distance. We don't need to go too far. We can get this right here, same quality, same kind of taste, not compromising on the taste. So we can do this locally. People are also getting more evolved towards the idea. So is that something that you see in this industry because people have become more conscious? You are able to do this more locally sourced, paste.
So, the thing is that produce in this country for the largest time is because we're spread out. you don't actually always get stuff that's the freshest, especially if you're in a cosmopolitan city like Mumbai.
Right.
But I think there's this huge, massive growing awareness of the fact that you get spectacular produce in India.
Right.
Every single thing, it's in some ways it's a bit disappointing because a lot of stuff that we've had for years went out.
Yeah.
It became popular and now suddenly it's coming back.
Right.
Haldi doodh, the turmeric latte.
Yeah.
It's all available here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every single thing. And a lot of the core of everything is that if it's going to be fresher than before, techniques are better, logistics are better, there is no reason to go outside and get stuff.
And I remember you mentioning when we spoke earlier, you are now able to even get, you know, some stuff. I think some Uttarakhand, you sourced, what was that?
Yeah, the chef's team sourced miso.
Miso.
Which is super good.
Yeah,
but
right here.
It's right here in our backyard.
We don't need to go too far looking for it.
People are walking into fancy food stores and buying Uncle Bob's red rice or whatever the brand is called.
Yeah.
But it grows in Karnataka.
Right.
You get bamboo rice that's super good for you. The world is talking about moringa. Hey, it's a drumstick.
Yeah.
We ate it as kids in sambar. We still do. We make chutneys out of it in South India.
That's right.
Every single thing is available in this country. We truly are actually a land of abundance, but we just don't know it.
So people are now becoming
People
more
are realizing.
and more,
Absolutely.
And Manan, would you say that this trend is something that's sort of also applicable to your industry, being locally sourced?
Yeah, surely. So when he was talking about
industry,
it could almost be that he was talking about perfumery, not about food. Because it's so true.
Yeah.
I think, like he said, we are bombarded by information, but the consumer now is significantly smarter than they were 10 years ago.
Right.
They know what is going into their food.
They also know what is going in there.
Yeah, and they also want to know what is going in perfumes. They want to know more about the ingredients. 10, 15 years ago, any big brand, when they do a big launch, they select a big actress and they focus all the marketing on that. Now you see more and more brands, the champion or what we call the champion or the hero of the launch is the ingredient.
Yeah.
Is there sandalwood in this? Is there jasmine in this? Is there gayak wood in this? Is there patchouli in this? 10 years ago, most people would not know what patchouli is, what agarwood is, what vetiver is. A lot of people are aware now. They want to see these ingredients.
And
in
is
their
there an effort to sort of consciously also source things locally?
Right. Yeah. So again, like when he was speaking, it was so true. Like India is really the land of abundance. When we talk about perfumery ingredients in our industry, I think we are one of the few countries in the world where almost all perfumery ingredients are available here. Wow. Otherwise, if you're sourcing for perfumery, you go to Paraguay to buy something, you go to Indonesia to buy something, but you come to India, you can buy a lot of things. You have florals in the south, jasmine tuberose, Dior and Chanel and all these guys have been sourcing. They come once a year to the south of India to source jasmine.
Right.
All the spices in the world, your black pepper, ginger, cardamom is coming from the south of India. Yeah. Agarwood, the best quality, which we hear about oud everywhere. Everyone is launching oud. The best quality in the world, the most expensive perfumery ingredient in the world comes from Assam. Sandalwood, which we all know and is controversial, it comes from India.
So we really do have everything.
So a perfumer can make a beautiful perfume using only Indian ingredients.
That's right.
All perfume noble ingredients, jasmine, tuberose, sandalwood are coming from India. Yeah. So why not incorporate them in an Indian brand is what our thought was as well.
Yeah, that's great. So and there is also a lot of aromatic crops being grown across a lot of places. I came across Kannauj as a place which has had the tradition of perfumes for years, thousands of years now, what we understand. And so there is a lot homegrown and can be incorporated. And I think from what I understand, both your respective ventures have focused on that as well quite a bit. So I think that's wonderful. Also, one other aspect of both your ventures is travel, right? I mean, both of you end up traveling a lot more for your respective work. Tell us a little bit, we can start with Manan, tell us a little bit about, travel generally. How has that inspired your brand? Are there any experiences you'd like to share with us which has sort of contributed towards your brand story?
So I'll speak in two parts for this. As far as travel goes, for a perfumer, because I'm not a perfumer and we work with some perfumers. So the way perfumery works is for the first 3-4 years when you want to become a perfumer, you smell hundreds or thousands of ingredients. Every perfumer has like in their olfactive memory 1200, 1500 different ingredients. And then when you imagine a perfumer, you imagine him in a lab mixing things like that. But actually it's not the case. They're sitting in front of a computer. It's much like making a food recipe. They say, let me put a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And see how it works. Yeah. But
But are the perfumers traveling or you're
so
traveling?
That's what I'm saying. So the important part for a perfumer is that they're sitting in this box all day trying to think of cool, interesting things. But where does the inspiration for those things come from? That comes from the travel. Like if I have a perfumer who worked on one of our perfumes, the chai musk, the inspiration for this perfume came from when she was having a chai in Jew like 5 years ago. And that chai was different from the thousands of other chais she had before because that had fresh lemongrass in it. So the inspiration from that perfume came from a travel. And for me personally as well, having traveled to Haiti, Indonesia, all these places, I think travel is very important when you want to do something, at least for me, something creative. When we're sitting in front of a desk all day, we are really reacting. But when we travel, we reflect. We think about what we want to do, why we are doing it, and how we go about doing it. So it was very important for me in this venture, my experience in the last year.
That's done well. What about you, Romil? How much has travel inspired the All Good brand?
I think it's not just about the All Good brand for me. Travel for me is, I think, the most direct and probably the most visceral way of feeding your own soul. Okay, it just doesn't get better than that. I think experiencing new places that you're not familiar with, it just impacts your entire world view. And then what you get out of that and what you maintain from that actually defines what you're going to do.
Anything during your travels that you saw or learned that you brought back to the idea behind All Good?
So I think most recently, before All Good came up, I got a chance to go to Scandinavia. And some parts of it were bleak. And some parts of it were just so minimalistic, but so unbelievably beautiful in every single aspect, whether it was the design, whether it was the people, so understated, where every single ingredient spoke for itself. And I got a chance to meet some really great people. And I think for me, the best part of travel is walking around the city and meeting new people and experiencing their culture and understanding why they do what they do. And I think a lot of that, yes, has come into All Good. Some of it as part of design, some of it as food, some of it as the finer details that we wanted in terms of where we would push the marketing as well, where we would choose to hold back and let the product and the service and the experience speak for itself, because that is very Scandinavian.
So travel has contributed significantly behind your adventure with food, whether it's setting up 212 All Good or it's any other adventure that you've had with food. Is that correct to summarize?
In addition to that, I actually make it a point to travel every year once just for food.
Oh, really?
Where I'll pick a city and I'll pick places.
So what is the idea? What do you want to get when you want to come back? Have you checked your list? What is that list like? What do you go with expecting?
Just knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's one thing to read about a place.
Knowledge of trends or knowledge of...
So I think, trends to some extent are slightly overrated, to be very honest, because they come in, there are very few trends that last for a very long time.
Yeah.
I'd rather not go with trends only. I think we build our business based on, I think, appreciation, understanding. But yes, there's a tremendous amount of learning, because what comes out of these travels and the places that I visit, there's a certain sense of freedom in thought more than anything else. And I try and apply those thoughts into what we do. Not just food, but like I said, design, presentation, service, the way we talk to customers. Indian service for the longest time has been, to say the least, a little bit servile, because that's in our culture.
Fair enough.
But we want to bring in something that's a little more easy. We want to be your friend.
And I guess that's exciting for us as the audience as well, where we get to, we don't have to travel to get the experience. You're traveling and getting the experience and serving it up to us. I think that's really exciting. So,
but please travel.
Yeah,
don't say we don't have to travel.
Of course. What I mean is it's easier and it's more exciting for us that we're able to experience more things.
And if we can do that, then I think we've done a hell of a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's an expectation that all guests of yours have. And I'm sure they'll go back very, very happy with 212 All Good. I don't know if we have more time left, but I just want to very quickly reflect on, as a culture, both your industries have been around for years. It's not something that's new, but there are new trends that have come up, and we see them afoot now, So is there a direction? I mean, of course, we're all happy with the way it's evolving. But is there something that you particularly are seeing that is exciting you about the time that's now it is? Like what aspect, I mean, you've seen it evolve over a period of time. How has it changed and what part of it is really, really exciting?
So I think what is the major change in the perfumery industry is that more and more everyone is kind of moving away from buying a perfume from a big brand. Just because you have a big store on 5th Avenue and you have some nice dresses and you have a fashion show, that doesn't make you a good perfume house.
Yeah.
More and more consumers, the ones that we want to sell to, they are looking for independent brands.
Right.
They are looking for brands which give them more information about what's inside the bottle. They are looking for brands which don't put all their money in making a fancy bottle with a gold on top and a silver at the bottom.
Right.
People are looking for perfume houses which put all the money inside the bottle, not outside the bottle, and in the marketing.
Yeah.
I think that's a great trend.
I think that's all the time that we have today. I really hope that people have taken away, interesting ideas with them from this conversation. So thank you very much, Manan and Romil, for your time. I think it's wonderful to hear so much. Is his brainchild, and Romil also has 20 years of experience in this hospitality sector. And one more trivia, Romil is also a chef by training. Welcome, Romil.
Thanks. Thank you guys all for coming.
We also have Manan Gandhi with us. Manan is the founder of Bombay Perfumery, which is a independent contemporary fragrance house based in India and very, very recently launched.
Correct.
We understand Manan grew up in Bombay, right? And dividing his time between basketball and his father's perfume lab, as I understand.
Right.
Manan also has a very successful business venture based in Grasse in France, where they supply fragrance ingredients to perfume houses across the world.
That's right.
So a big welcome to the two of you as well. Thank you so much for being part of this. Yes. Thank you for being part of this this first adventure of ours. I'm going to get straight to the questions. I think everybody is curious to understand the concepts and idea and the people that we have with us. Should we start with you, Romil, first?
Sure.
Yeah. So, Romil, you've got 20 years of experience in this hospitality industry.
Yep.
You're also a chef by training.
Which I never did, though.
Tell us a little bit about, how did you come to be part of this culinary world?
You want me to go back to the time when I had my 7 siblings and then there was a fire and 5 of them died and I had to cook?
No, that's not a story we want to hear. No.
Sorry.
So let us hear everything that you have to say about how you came here.
All of you have heard the phrase, there's no such thing as a free lunch. It's not true. I get a free lunch every single day. Every day. And that's the only reason I do this. Just so I can get those free lunches. No, so I think on a more serious note, I truly believe I'm one of those lucky guys because I get up every single morning saying I want to go to work because I love what I do. The whole idea of being able to create something, the whole idea of being able to nourish people, I was going to say touch people.
List, and this Floating magazine itself is an online magazine which sort of chronicles the lives and works of artists based in Asia and the Middle East. Another culture primarily was started so that Payal and I could get together and meet interesting people and have conversations with them. Truthfully, that is why we started Another Culture. But on a serious note, we also visualize Another Culture as a platform where we bring together interesting people to not just indulge in interesting conversations, but also somehow create possibilities of new learnings and collaborations Hopefully, at the end of this session, you guys will appreciate what we mean and get to understand us a little better. So, without further delay in this, I'm going to first introduce you to our first guest of the day. To my left is Romil Ratra. Romil is the director of Bellona Hospitality, which is the F&B arm of Phoenix Mill. This cafe and bar, which is 212 All Good.
But it sounds really shady, so just Nourish is good. I started my career with the Taj. Lived in Mumbai all my life. The Taj was great, best hotel school in the world. Moved to Barcelona to be a cook for some time, which was a mind-changing experience. Got back here, set up a restaurant of my own, lost everything. Fortunately, we managed to make it back. Since then, it's just been fun and free lunches. I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of gyan about what I've done in the past. What I'd really like to talk to you guys about is what we're doing here and what we hope to do as we go forward. The only thing I didn't get was to live in a place called grass.
Yeah.
I want to live in a place called
we're going to
grass.
hear more about that from Manan, definitely.
Sure.
But before we move to Manan, we know you've been around for 20 years. We've seen a change in food culture over the last decade or so. We've seen food evolve. At the same time, we just when we thought we've heard all the terms associated. Big welcome to the very first edition of Another Culture. This is exciting for us, so thank you for being part of this. Almost all seemingly good ideas. Another Culture, which is a collaboration between Paper Planes and The Floating magazine, came up and germinated as an idea over a cup of coffee in a cafe. It's as cliche as it is, but here we are. We've hammered on it. We've decided to go ahead with it, and here we are with our first two guests for the day. For those of us and who are, I mean, it's a first venture for all of us, the first edition for all of us, but those of you who do not know who we are, a quick introduction. Paper Planes, which is a venture that I'm a part of, shares independent print magazines with readers in India through a subscription service. We source these magazines from across the world. The Floating magazines, on the other hand, which was started by Payal Khandelwal, who's with us as well today. She's a journalist.